I don't know what it happened.
Good morning, everyone. This is our regular staff meeting for Monday, January 26th. And we will start with staff and elected reports. I'll put Mark on the spot. Morning, Mark.
Good morning, Commissioners. Our Green County Planner. So we've got a subdivision on your agenda for next week. Bucking Iron Business Park final plat on February 3rd. The city got through its consideration of it and agreed to not agree on any recommendations.
I saw that.
It's up to you guys purely. So
Yes.
it's in your report. So P and Z, all they have on their agenda on the 5th is to look at the city's transportation plan that's been developed through this plan, their draft plan. So there's just going to be a presentation. I don't think there's going to be any action on that. And then sometime, I'm thinking, it's up to you guys, but have the same thing brought to you at perhaps a staff meeting. I don't know if you want to take up a regular meeting with it. It's probably just going to be a slideshow of some nature. But if that's okay, I can see if we can get that scheduled for you at some Monday meeting.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well,
Getting
I'll
on.
let them know.
Okay.
It'll probably be their city engineer, Tom Morneau, doing a presentation, or Kelly Schroeder, the planner, I'm not sure. Anyway, but feel free to come to the February 5th meeting if you'd like as well. City and county staff are working on a draft cooperative agreement for the JPA update. And so that would be the comprehensive plan for the area around the city. Where be a joint project cost share on that, which is what we did back in 2016 and 17. So it just outlines responsibilities, whatnot, for, doesn't commit us to hiring anybody, but it sets the stage for the city and county to interact on that particular project. So anyway, that's all I have. Any questions at this time?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mark, would that be because of the Bucking Iron Business Park fiasco? Looking at that little
I don't
new way to
think
look
so.
at it?
No, I think it's primarily the fact that in the past, we've agreed to try and get these things updated on a 5-year basis. Well, we're out. We're going on 10 years now, and so it's probably time to get with it. That has more to do with what we call it what's the name of it? I can't think of it. It's an MOU on how subdivisions are viewed in this 1 mile area, more procedural as opposed to broader land use. The JDA is going to look at broader land use categories, whereas the MOU is more specific to how applications are handled within in that area. They're related, as I say, but not the same thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just clarification. I think I caught the letters this time, JPA.
Yes.
And what does that stand for?
Joint planning area.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank
Thanks
you,
for your
Mark.
time.
Coco?
Good morning, Coco Cleason, Sheridan County Assessor. And I just wanted to update you guys on some of the exemptions, kind of where we're at. So the long-term homeowners, that was the 50% off. And so last year, we had 2,330 applicants that applied. And then, so this year so far, we're up to 1,835. And again, that's for the 50% off. And then the 25% off, and remember, last year that went to all the residential properties. And the rough number we were kind of thinking we would have this year is probably close to 8,000, and we're at 3,242. So those numbers we're thinking are low, and the cutoff date is March 1st. So we're gonna try to do some Facebook ads. I mean, we've really put it out there. I don't really know what else we can do. And also, just so you guys are aware, Lori Bratton is doing a mailer for both those exemptions, so she was gonna send them out to all the residential property owners. And so I just kind of wanted to update you guys on where we were at with those. You guys have any questions?
I appreciate the information.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully folks get wind and it's not all on the last 2 days.
Yes, that's what we're hoping.
Good morning, engineer. Red Grade Road Project Phase 1 is advertised. The bid opening is this February 24th at 2 p.m. Central Federal Lands handles all that, as you know, so we'll be getting notice shortly after that. I think I can go in live and look at opening it. I hope so. Willow Avenue, I guess I'm looking for direction. I did visit with Christie about it. We're kind of ready to pass on the survey and everything to professional services to design the whole urban type project through there. We can do an RFP with price, however you guys want to do that. So kind of looking for direction on that.
And do you want to just kind of explain to folks the 2 different ways we could do that?
Well, we could do an RFP, this little project like this, all our engineering firms in town that civil engineering they're qualified to do this project, so. To try to pick one versus the other, I think we could put out an RFP with price, and if you want to do pricing on it, then we have a price, of that RFP, what it would take. Sometimes you gotta be a little careful, we're not totally committed to the lowest price. We could, the best value is what we look at on those,
My conversation with Ken was, felt it was worthwhile to see what an estimate might be for that work. Doesn't mean we're committed to paying for it, but it means we have a quote in hand, and we chatted about a couple places maybe we could go for some grant funding for that. But before we go too far down that path, we need to know how much it would cost to actually get it designed. So just to keep the ball rolling, I thought it was a good idea.
I think it's a very good idea. I don't know, do we need a motion on it, or can we just consent, say that we think we can go out? I mean, it's not costing us anything to go out for an RFP.
Yes. If you decide to go
It's not-
forward, I guess that we would probably, because we didn't budget, all I budgeted this year was the tree and debris removal, and then we put the road in with the road and bridge with our material, so. Right now, we have no line item budget for design.
You can just tell them what you want them to do.
Okay. I think we'd like to, just from the facial expressions and body language,
Yep.
we would be supportive of going out to
Yeah.
bid for a cost on that one.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's see, lastly, I've been working with, reviewing software companies for our new road and bridge software, like I mentioned last time. So I've narrowed it down to 2 with our existing vendors, 3. I think I'm ready to make a recommendation, go forward. Do I work with Cameron and IT to get, that, or do I need to come before this board? How would you like to proceed with that?
I believe that you would be working with Mark on that, and then once there's an estimate, come to the board, because it sounds like obviously there'll be a budget change.
Absolutely correct.
Okay. Sounds good. Get this behind me, God. Road and bridge, they're out, they're gonna try to do some chipping and tree vegetation stuff this week. It's supposed to be in the 40s. And, they're not plowing snow, so, although they did go out on our paved roads this weekend, we got a little bit of snow, so. But I think we'll do some vegetation management going this week, try to. Oh, yeah.
Any questions for Ken?
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Arden.
What was the The date you said on the bid opening, February what?
24th.
24th. And you read it fast enough, thank you.
Oh, you just got a question.
Yeah, Madam Chair. Either County Clerk. Thank you. I just wanted to, just for a reminder as the budget officer, for when we get ready to do budget amendments, when we get ready to make formal actions, it would be very helpful if we go ahead and state where we think those funds are coming from. Since they're not budgeted, just so we have that discussion as part of our action.
So yeah, and those, that would be changes to the IT budget for that one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then if the funding is going to be coming from the general fund,
Sure.
I mean, where are we, how are we going to?
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Misty?
Misty, Deputy Clerk. I just want to let you know that all the 1099s went out Friday. And I just got a letter from the IRS that the file was good, so we're good to go.
Great. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Just wanted to update everybody. The W-2s were submitted to all employees. Then it has to be submitted to the SSA IRS for review. Usually takes 7 to 10 days. Got my update on Friday that the W-2, W-3 file had no errors. So everything is good to go. And the request for overtime from employees has really dwindled down. But until it's April 15th, we do have the ability to help people with their overtime if they want to claim that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You done? Clerk Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ada Thompson, County Clerk. We're going to be locating the map that used to be up here to show the county islands in the city. And in follow-up to the potential discussion with the city on the area on North Main that we know of mostly as My Buddy's Place. We are in the process of working on renewals of liquor licenses, but just as a reminder, should that be annexed, that liquor license would go with that.
Thank you. Katie? Dr. Bird? Jesse?
No, Madam Chair.
Renee? No. Okay. Robert? Good morning.
Hi, Robert Gill, Sheridan County Airport Manager. Just wanted to provide a couple of updates here. Old FedEx building, building number 5, we had awarded that project to convert that building back into a hangar to build. They had a couple supply challenges, still waiting on a beam. The door should be here in about a couple weeks. So construction on that project hasn't really started yet, but planning to move forward on an RFP process to get a next tenant lined out. And if I get that kicked off here pretty soon, that should run pretty closely with the conversion of the building. Wanted to provide an update on 2025 airline performance employments. Once again, we ended up with another record-breaking year. Employment-wise, 31,275 total flying passengers. That's revenue and non-revenue. So total flying passengers in and out, 61,572. Feel like that's doing pretty well there. Of course, capacity has been a bit of a challenge here lately. Moving forward on the parking lot project to expand the long-term parking, I got a 60% design from Morrison Merrily. We haven't done a review yet, but hope to sit down and review it here with them in the next week or two, and planning on bidding out that project in March with a bid opening in March. So moving forward on that project, which is, it's good even now this time of year, both parking lots are still pretty much completely full up there. Also, I'll be bringing a marketing grant application to you guys here shortly. We haven't been marketing as heavy lately, still working off the 2024 grant. But that grant is about exhausted, and per the MOU with the state, we do need to be promoting the air service. Finally, had a couple staffing challenges. I know I've asked for a handful of positions up here and looking at doing a little bit of a restructuring on the supervisory level and making a couple changes there. And that's all I have. Is there any questions for me?
Doesn't look like there's any questions. Appreciate the updates.
Thank you.
Oh,
Madam
sorry,
Chair.
Clerk Thompson got us. Sorry.
Engineer, I just wanted to make sure I had all the airport meetings on my calendar, so I didn't know if we knew, Robert, if you had an airport meeting scheduled for this year.
Yep, I can send you that schedule.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Eric? Kimber? Kelly? Kenny?
No, Madam Chair, thanks.
Sheriff Dominguez? Good? Cameron?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good morning. Just an update, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that we were going to be doing a software update to our accounting software. That was Tyler Tech who would be doing that. We had scheduled it for February 9th and 10th. Mark Ramber was able to work with Tyler. They were able to do it in an overnight process last week, so we will not be down for those 2 days. There were a couple hiccups during that process, and it suddenly sent out a lot of emails about changes to your direct deposit banking information. So we've gotten that corrected. I want to assure all staff that no changes were actually made. Some of these emails went back 8 years that just were in a queue and suddenly got all released with this update. So IT has taken care of all that. We're just monitoring it, making sure there's no other changes, but we will not be down on February 9th and 10th.
Awesome.
I do have a question about the RFP that you asked me to go up for accounting services, but I would like to do that with the compliance report in just a few minutes.
Okay,
That's all.
thank you. Commissioner Jennings?
I don't know anything, thank you.
Commissioner Arcee? Commissioner Settle?
I'm good, thank you.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Either, so is Carrie sitting outside? Is anybody? Karen? No? I was just gonna have her come in if she was sitting up there. All right. Just let Cameron get set up for the financial and compliance report.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
The report's going to be coming up in just a minute. I'm going to wait to see that, but it's on our website. We have it on the schedule to discuss one more time on next Monday. If there's any questions from this meeting, today's will be very brief so that you have enough time to look at it. PMCH will be creating, I think it's 8 copies, and they'll be mailing those up. They were supposed to have been here, so I'm hoping today they'll be here so that you have a hard copy. And then February 3rd is where you take acceptance of the report. Now, one thing to mention with this report is that the Wyoming State Department of Audit has a copy of it, and they had some questions about it, but the questions they have isn't really dealing with your acceptance on February 3rd. So these, we're going down 2 paths. Wyoming State Department of Audit is going to be asking stuff. You will be asking questions, but they're going to be going in a concurrent manner. So if you're looking at the audit documents, I'm just going to go down to towards the end and looking at the final basis for this. And page 145 is where we're looking at it. So it's an unmodified audit, which is what we would hope for. And with the internal control over financial reporting, they did identify material weaknesses and then significant deficiencies. In the federal awards, they had no material weaknesses, but there were some significant deficiencies. So overall, it's a unmodified report. For the federal side of things, which is, we call it a SEPA report, but it's called a single audit. They looked at Weed Pest, which was a Fish and Wildlife grant, the airport, and then the community service block grant. The three of them totaled over 750,000. That's how they came up with it. If we had one program itself that was over that 750, they would have just looked at that one. But this past year we didn't, so they had to look at three. That information in there when they're looking at it is going to come back. It's a little bit further, but page 121 and 122, these are all the federal awards. Most of the awards that we get stay in-house and managed in-house, but there were a few that were sub-recipients. So that was the community service block grant. We will provide a different agency with the funding, so it's more of a pass-through, and then the TANF. So when we're looking at this, 1.8 million was direct and 395,000 pass-through. So we had over 2.2 million in grants. Last year, we had a finding on the federal awards. We got that taken off and then put right back on this year because Weed Pest didn't report their Fish and Wildlife, the $400,000 grant they received from there. So right now, we're working with Weed Pest. One of the things the auditors have said is that component units, whether it's the airport, fairgrounds, the library, they have a federal one coming up, Weed Pest, they have to report each of those federal awards to the county, myself in particular, because none of us were aware of it. Not even the auditors knew that the Weed Pest had this grant. So that's how we got another deficiency. We should be able to get that taken off for next year. And then with the libraries, we're already aware of it. So we're going to add that in as well. 2 years ago, we had a suspension and debarment, one that got cleared off, and Weed Pest brought it back on again. So again, it's their contracting process with their sub-recipients. We have to make sure the language is in there. Working with Walker, we've corrected that with any contracts that they have, so we should get that cleared off next year. The other items of deficiencies will be a little past here on starting, I guess this is page 128, 146 if you're looking at the PDFs. The first few, it's the exact same ones we had last year. Our auditors had told us that there was no way in 6 months we could have gotten these cleared up. So we're going to be working on those. So we have a finance committee that's meeting tomorrow to discuss some of these and then come up with plans moving forward to address them. This leads me into my question that I had for the commission with the RFP. Last week, you had me go out or suggested we go out for an RFP for audit services. The Wyoming Department of Audit called me last week and said they have concerns about the first three findings, and in particular, finding number one, which is the ability for the county to prepare our financial statements. And they gave us a suggestion. They said you are not required to follow it, but if you do, you can clear up these three and just get it off the list. And that is, instead of going for an RFP just for the audit report, the financial statements, everything that we're currently doing now, they're suggesting we split that, do 2 RFPs. The first one is for preparation of audit services. So CPA firm works with us on a quarterly basis to make sure all of our items are up to date. If there is something they notice, we have the time to correct it and make those adjustments before June 30th comes around. Wyoming Department of Audit said that there are quite a few municipalities and counties in Wyoming that go that route. And then you can still have a third-party firm do your audit itself. But it just makes sure that we are doing it accurately and correcting any mistakes that might come up. Some of the things may be minor, other things you will still not notice until the official audit comes in, but it might get rid of 95% of the stuff that we are missing at this point. So this is where I'm asking permission to split this RFP. One doing for, it's called an audit preparation engagement. We can go out and secure a firm. PMCH say they do that type of audit work for other entities, mostly municipalities rather than counties. And then you do a second RFP for the actual compliance reports and financial statements. I'm not sure what the cost will be. We didn't know what the cost will be on just a single RFP, so we'll have to wait to see that comes in. But the alternative from the Wyoming Department of Audit was saying that you could hire a CPA on staff full-time, but that might cost you more than 150 grand. And the audit prep firm may only be 50 to 60. And they're looking at it as a focused endeavor rather than having someone on staff year-round. So based off of that, I did talk to PMCH. They strongly recommended. I did talk to the treasurer and to the county clerk. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I feel they were in favor of that as well. So that's why I'm asking if I have permission to split this and do 2 RFPs.
So it would be separated into 2 parts. One entity could bid on one or the other or both. Is that correct? So we could end up with 2 separate firms. We could end up with the same firm doing 2 separate things with probably separate groups of people, or explain that just a little bit.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Siddle, correct. So according to the Wyoming Department of Audit, a firm could have 2 distinct arms. When one's working on audit prep, the other is working on the final audit. The 2 sides may all be employees of that same firm, but they separate it. They don't talk to each other about the audit that's going on. So there is some separation of duties. Or you can have a firm that only does preparation work and you hire a different firm to do the audit. Either one will work, and according to the Wyoming Department of Audit, they are comfortable with either way, just as long as there was a separation of duties within that company.
Yeah.
Yeah, Clerk Thompson.
Madam Chair, County Clerk, I just wanted to add that I appreciate the discussion that the treasurer and the administrative director and myself were able to have based on these recommendations by the State Department of Audit. And I wholeheartedly support the idea of a split audit versus hiring a CPA at $140,000 or $50,000. I think this makes sense. We lack the capability to fix what's going on right now. And in visiting with my fellow county clerk, who's also a former auditor, just as an example, she's a smaller county, but she, being a former auditor, is able to do this review of all the source documents and look at all of that in review, getting ready before anything's sent to the auditor, and it takes her 300 hours. So because she knows what she's doing and she was a former auditor, she's able to actually do that work as if she were a CPA, as the clerk. And just the importance of being able to, you do your course of business, but it still then needs to go back and be reviewed. And it all the way back to the source documents, and it takes time. And to understand if that's affecting what fiscal years being affected, those type of things, so things are reported correctly. So I do support going out for a split audit versus hiring a CPA or employee. The risk there is who's gonna cross-train if that person gets hit by a bus or leaves, and you're then up against another gap. So my preference is supporting this idea. And once we're done with this discussion, Madam Chair, I do have an update on the statutory violation.
Okay. Any other questions for
Madam
Cameron? Yeah.
Chair. Cameron, you mentioned that one of the audits would be taking place quarterly. That would be, did I hear you right?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Commissioner Arce. This was just an example that our current auditors say they do with some municipalities. Instead of waiting until May and June to review everything that the county has done, they would ask for trial balances in some of these reports on a quarterly basis to try to correct things sooner rather than all at once, or to make sure that everyone's up to speed saying, oops, you got this new grant in, or you have this new item that's going to affect our single audit. Let's go ahead and start working towards that now. So it just gives them a brief snippet and be able to address issues as they came along. But that's just PMCH. You could hire a different firm who only wants to look at it in May and June. So I'm not saying it will be quarterly, but that was just a suggestion that they said, keep us on track.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Cameron, do you think it's reasonable or possible for PMCH to work with a completely different entity to do the preparation for the audit? Or are they going to balk and say, no, thank you?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Wright, I did have that conversation with PMCH. They said they would be bidding on either way. They would love to be able to do the audit prep and work with other firms all the time afterwards. So they were comfortable with the idea of saying, commissioners want to split it between two different firms, they would gladly work with a different company. They're not in the position to say that they won't. So I'm taking that as auditors in general work with other auditors all the time, and they would be willing to do that.
Excuse me. Thank you. Okay. Great. Are we,
I just
you're
need
giving the
permission.
nod to Cameron for 2 audits?
Madam Chair, I just want to say, I think we want to get this corrected, and if that's what the department suggests, I think, and the fact that both our clerk and treasurer agree, I think we should. proceed with it.
Do we need, Madam Chair, do we need a motion for that? Just to. I move to allow Cameron to send out the RFPs for a split audit, both general and an annual.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Edith, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, County Clerk, Commissioner Thompson. Following up, there is a section, I don't know, what page it is on, is it 102, Cameron?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
That talks about the statutory budget violation. Thank you. Okay. So when we first heard about this, the auditor's asking, here's a number, let's find it. It did take a bit of work to figure out what they were actually looking at, but we did find it. And what we realized in looking at the work that's done between your office, board, and the treasurer's office and my office, that there is a process that does happen called general fund transfers. The issue is that transfers are not currently funded in our budget. So it's a matter of simply funding it. Having said that, of course, there is some work that had to be done on my side, especially to understand what this was about and what was happening. So what I wanted to share with you today is the treasurer could speak better to the process and how that works. But my understanding from the treasurer is that we need to fund this. This is not something that we can do without. The particulars, I'll let her speak to that. But it is something that currently, in our current budget, we also do not have budgeted. So while this is write-up is based on last year's budget, I do need to move ahead as a budget officer and do a budget amendment now for our current budget sometime between now and June. So I'm suggesting that I get that drafted and reviewed by all of our divisions and Clint Beaver, our deputy civil attorney, and then bring that before you for your consideration as a budget amendment, so that moving forward, we can hopefully get this corrected and it not be a problem.
So, Eden, my understanding was the transfer was fine. It's just that we didn't track it appropriately. So we would need to create a line item for that.
Not quite.
Okay.
It was not budgeted. So that transfer line has to be budgeted. And a lot of these examples, I think what you need is to drill down a little bit on that and understand it. And I appreciate that. And I want that to happen right now. So I would give my time to the administrative director and to the treasurer to explain that a little better.
Madam Chair. So I'll give the example of CMAT. We received reimbursement for CMAT. The treasurer transferred it between bank accounts. All of those items were correct. However, it got stuck in a line item that's called, sorry, I'm bringing it up here. Transfers in, transfers out. So the items here in green, we had a transfer of a CMAC of 250,000 and it gets stuck in a transfer in. To transfer it out, we needed to have done it over to the Public Works spreadsheet, and it's a line item called other revenue transfers from general fund grants. And the example of 250,000 here, that's what the adopted was. It needed to actually be put into this cell here. It is as simple as that. It just wasn't on a spreadsheet, and that's what the auditors are looking at. There's no money that is hanging out there.
Right,
The
everything
amounts balanced, if you did the trial balance, everything was there, but because it wasn't on a spreadsheet, that's what the violation is. So this particular fiscal year in September, we had a reimbursement of 225,697 for CMAC, and it just needs to get onto this one spreadsheet. We showed it on the grant side, we showed it as expenditure on the grant side, it just didn't make it over to this one. So that's what you're going to be seeing in the coming weeks from the clerk is a budget amendment showing that it made it to this particular spreadsheet.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, of course, Madam Chair, moving forward, we'll make sure it's funded for the new requested budget. Unless there's anything else on this topic, I do have one other item that I forgot. Please, I'll yield to treasurer. Okay, so on the current adopted budget that's on our website, I have to own up to a mistake. I completely screwed up 3 pages that were grabbed in air and put wrongly into that publication. One of them, as an example, I apologize to emergency management, it says you have a travel line funded, and you don't. So that's one of the 3 small errors that I found, but it is a big deal, and I do apologize that we grabbed the wrong page. I'm gonna do better to make sure that we're double and triple checking. As you know, last year was a nightmare. We had so many spreadsheets, and so our books were huge and thick, and I'm gonna be very careful to do more in person with you on the screen instead of handing you a bunch of paperwork and then we end up grabbing the wrong one. All that said, I'm working on a better accounts, a better process to be more efficient and not of course, spend so much time creating so many spreadsheets to try to show all these different scenarios and really keep to, if you take action, that's when I'm gonna start changing things. But I really like the idea of coming, before you with any possible budget meetings, having that spreadsheet on the screen. And we can make the change live right there and show you the difference it's gonna make when you're thinking about something, versus a lot of paper. And then, so I apologize, but there will be, I believe, 3 pages, is that correct? That'll be coming where the wrong page was pulled, and I take full responsibility that I screwed up on that, but we'll be correcting that.
Okay, thank you for the heads up. Any questions for Clerk Dalton?
Madam Chair, just had one other comment, and this is dealing with how our audit works in general. So just the files that I have to go through, you have 12 months, that may be 12 spreadsheets, emerging different things. It's 3,000 documents that go into our audit, so it's not a simple process. And then of that 3,000, about 1,500 are just the single audit, the grant items, the items that CSBG airport. So I just wanted it to be known that this isn't just a few documents that we're turning over to our auditors. We're going through a lot of information just to get to this point. So I'm not trying to downplay our errors, but there is a lot of information that goes into it.
Yeah. It's months worth of work, just compiling stuff. So yeah, I appreciate that, Cameron. Thank you for your comments, Nita. Do you have anything else? Okay, we'll see if Carrie, there she is. Good morning, Carrie. Morning, Andrew.
Howdy.
Never know if I should come in, but I don't want to disrupt. You can always come in.
Always coming.
Disrupt the work. Say what? Warming up this morning?
Sure.
All right, yeah, the floor is yours. All right, well, thank you all for allowing us to come again and give an update, our first of 2026, which can't believe that's where we're at. And so because we did not have, or I did not come and give an update in the fall because we did the tour instead. It's a little bit longer, just because there was a lot of work that we were actively doing in the fall, even amid the government shutdown, that district employees were still working. We were just doing it from home during that time or wherever we could find a spot. So there's a lot of stuff on here, but I'll move through it kind of quickly. I'm not going to read it all to you, but certainly wanted to make sure you had the information. We completed a lot of our active and ongoing projects that had been through some earlier signups. A lot of them kind of came together right kind of at the end of fiscal year 2025 and into the fall. So several of our, we have a stream stabilization project out on Piney Creek, some septic replacement, stockwater, irrigation infrastructure, a lot of various projects that were completed or at least underway. And in that time, my brain just emptied for that moment. But those were all ongoing through previous signups, mostly through our Clean Water Act water quality grants, also some funded through small water project program through the state. We also were heavy into some of our fire mitigation work, which we're going to talk a little bit more about here in a minute. But in terms of projects completed, we had 8 that we had contracted to do last year, mostly kind of debris removal, sediment, ash out of stream channels, or hazard tree removal on banks to try to minimize them becoming part of some future debris flows, some reservoir cleanouts and irrigation infrastructure, and also some fence repair.
We had a few of those completed in the fall, some under construction, but still have some additional work to do, and some where they didn't quite get going on them last fall, but still have them planned to do that. We submitted 8 requests through the Wyoming Water Development Office Small Water Project Program with their November deadline. 5 stock water projects, 1 bank stabilization project, and that one acts actually the clean burn work. They're next to Clean Burn Park. And 2 irrigation infrastructure, a diversion modification, as well as a flume, repair of a flume. For our water monitoring, we did complete our 2025 monitoring on the Tongue River. We're working on the report right now. That monitoring this year did include some additional fire-related parameters at some sites. So we're, and I'll talk about those in a minute. We have funds through the USDA Environmental Quality Incentives Program that I've talked to you before, through the Upper Tongue River and the Upper Big Goose Creek National Water Quality Initiative projects. So what those do is earmark some funds from USDA for work in those areas. So they don't compete with other parts of the state or even other parts of the county. And types of projects that were identified through that process included some stock water developments, irrigation, fencing, and invasive treatments. Last year, I let you know that we were not successful with a level 2 feasibility study request on the Alliance lateral ditch. But we did work with the city to submit a request to USDA through their watershed protection program. And that's where we were at as when I last spoke with you. And we have learned since then that, at least from what we've been told, I do not know what's going on with that throat right now, that USDA staff will be here this summer to complete that initial, they call it a PIFR, preliminary investigation feasibility report. So we expect some of their folks to be here this summer, and hopefully moving that forward to an actual, to some actual funding to proceed with that. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt, do they have to do the PIFR first before they know what the scope of the project is? And I mean, is it, I mean, it's obviously more than just getting the ditch cleaned out. Are there like head cut issues or?
That would be, if you, it's been a little while since I've talked about it, but this was the one for, where we requested through Water Development Office through a level 2 feasibility study to transfer the Alliance lateral ditch water and use the city raw water transmission line for conveyance. And so it's the feasibility of doing that, and then also extending that raw water transmission line so that some areas that are currently, say, for example, the school district or the hospital that are currently using treated water for irrigation of pretty large areas where they could use kind of some of that raw. So it's a little bit bigger than that. So that's why there's the pepper.
Thank you.
Yes. No, sorry, I understand. And I was like, yeah, it was a while ago. I have to kind of remind myself a little bit on that too. And then lastly, under the water monitoring and watersheds, which I neglected to put on here, for that same reason, we will have our annual watershed meetings coming up. Don't have specific dates yet, but plan for those in March. And the annual watershed newsletters will be coming out here soon with that information. So it's that time of year again. On the Acme Power Plant, and thanks, Mike, for coming to our Acme Working Group meeting we just had last week, speaking through a lot of different pieces. If you recall, when I spoke to you last, we had talked a little bit about some of the challenges identified with the partial building demolition that had been planned as part of the asbestos removal because of the collapsing roof in the eastern portion of the building. Due to those challenges and after several discussions with other partners and potential funders and EPA and DEQ, we are pursuing full demolition this summer. And that will include the soil hotspot cleanup that was also slated for this summer. Planning to host a public meeting in the next month or two to kind of describe that and let folks know that that's what's coming. But that was really the only way to move forward with the next step. And as you know, when you participated in some of those meetings early on, we had a while ago determined that we were not going to try to save the building, that demolition was part of that future long-term thing. It's just now going to come together a little faster than we had hoped, so that, or had planned. So that's good news. But it also just means there's a lot of trying to pull all the pieces together. The EPA grant that's funding part of that, and the grant through the DEQ and Wyoming Business Council, federal funds through those entities, expire this fall. So that's this summer is when this work will be happening. In terms of outreach, not a lot in the last couple of months, other than through the Working Lands Collaborative. We coordinated a Ranchers Night Out in December. That was out at Bighorn and attended by 30 people even during a snowstorm. So that was a pretty good time. Those are still a lot of good networking and a lot of good conversation. This event focused on mental health. We had Ann Perkins come out and kind of talk to folks about that, and some good discussion at those tables. Our next workshop, is the end of February, 27th, 28th, and that'll feature Steve Kenyon, who will talk about winter grazing and some of the economics associated with that. So fire, that's the last piece that I just kind of wanted to talk about. I know it's not maybe as much on our minds, but it's still an issue and still something that we need to kind of be paying attention to. We have obligated all of the funding we had for the short-term mitigation work. That was about $160,000. As I mentioned earlier, not all those projects are done. So we may have a little bit, some of those that may come in under budget, or some of that funding may switch around a little bit. And that was largely through grants through the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Trust, and then Clean Water Act federal funds through the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality. We also did that additional water quality monitoring. We did see what you would expect, increases in turbidity, suspended solids, those kind of things following storm events. Nothing else really with high concentrations of metals, things like that stood out to us at this time anyway. Our thought is that maybe there'd be some value in some additional monitoring, but that's going to depend on whether we can obtain additional funding or interest, whatever, to do so. Right now, we don't have plans to do any, but that doesn't mean we would not, won't be talking about it. If you recall, when we were here, we had the contract with Steady Stream Hydrology to do an initial, start the steps of a watershed assessment to look at more the longer term needs associated with debris flows and watershed protection. We saw a lot of movement of material this summer after some of those storm events in the Little Tongue River watershed and some others. So that's going to continue for a while, and really trying to understand what our risks are to infrastructure or just watershed health in general. So we completed the initial desktop analysis, which was predominantly looking at a lot of aerial imagery and doing some modeling to understand, or to at least identify where those areas of concern will be. So that part is done, and that was funded through federal grants through the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality, and then matched with funds from Plank Stewardship Initiative and the City of Sheridan. So our next step will be kind of going out in the field and actually looking at those sites and really understanding and doing some survey work or other sort of data gathering, so that it can be incorporated into a master plan as part of the permit documentation needed to the Corps of Engineers to do any of these bigger long-term treatments. So that's the next step, but our timeline, we don't really know, because that is not work we have funding for yet. So we'll be looking at different grants or opportunities to pull that next step together. Again, last year we worked with Cameron and for a request to the FEMA hazard mitigation grant for some turbidity sensors. We still have not heard anything on those, so we did go ahead and use separate funding to go ahead and purchase the 3 that were intended. If something comes through with FEMA ever, we can talk about if there's a need to continue to pursue that. But as of right now, there was some desire from the partners, State Engineer's Office, DEQ, and the City of Sheridan to go ahead and use the other grant funds that we had to go ahead and get that done. So we did get those purchased. They'll be installed, weather permitting, this spring before runoff happens, and be monitored and maintained by the State Engineer's Office and DEQ. So we were mainly just the conduit to get them here, to get the funding here to make those purchases. But people smarter than me will be oversight on those. And then.
There isn't anybody smarter than
Oh,
you.
Nick, there are lots of people. And then lastly, on the fire, we did submit a few different requests last year for USDA Emergency Watershed Program or Protection Program funding for fire-related and flooding for the town of Dayton and other areas on Little Tongue River, Wolf Creek and Big Goose Creek. Those were unsuccessful, but through some repeated conversations, we have also now with USDA worked with the town of Dayton to submit a request through that same program on the Alliance Lateral Ditch, that PL 566 Watershed Protection Program. For those program, EWP is the district and sponsor. For the PL 566, we can't, so that's the city had to make that request. The town of Dayton had to make this request. We will still help with coordination and all the other pieces, but those requests have been made. Hopefully we can get that PIFR this summer for those as well, but just to see, there's been a lot of, as I said, a lot of movement of cobble, rock, debris, sediment, ash into, and Little Tongue River has been impacted quite a bit because of that. So with that, I will turn it over to Andrew unless you want to ask me questions first, but just turn it over to Andrew and then we can scan for any additional. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to tag along with Carrie here. I might note to say the same thing her does, like I said, in name mine. I don't have a lot to add. We are in the application evaluation phase, I guess, of our program year. Most years that occurs before Christmas time, but with 6 weeks of furlough starting October 1st, we're a little behind. Coupled with some streamlining from headquarters and at the state level, we're hopeful that we can still commit funding for spring work before summer hay and that sort of thing comes on. We'll have to see. We carried over 32 applications from last year, about $4 million in ask on those. And about 20 new applications. Kind of gave you a breakdown there. Heavy on the annual grass suppression, heavy on irrigation. Grazing management has taken an interesting development in the last couple of years with the advent of virtual fencing. There are 4 companies in the U.S. doing virtual fence. All kind of cell phone tower based. The cutting edge of that would be satellite. As I understand, the limitation really is batteries at this point. It takes twice as much or more batteries to do satellite communication than it does for cell phone. So I imagine we see that sometime. We do have a few folks that we're working with in the county as kind of a pilot with some partners to understand the challenges and limitations of that so that they can be able to others to give understanding and kind of describe the benefits and how it fits for their operation. The fall was still fairly busy with project implementation. About 20 landowners or operators we assisted with invasive annual grass treatments. Total with spring, it's over 31,000 acres and 34 operations. With the nice weather, they've been up into last week. We're still doing dirt work construction. So I think I might have a trench full of snow on one now, but it sounds like it's going to melt again this week. So I don't have a lot else to add. Kind of some transition in our programs. They've extended the 2018 Farm Bill again. That's fine. They did also reset the payment limit. That was one of the challenges a year ago when they had extended it, was with a very long Farm Bill. The rules were such that some folks and you know, a handful in our office too were reaching that payment limit. I still had work they were interested in applying for help for, but so they've reset that again, and we'll see what they bring us for legislation, new Farm Bill. So, thank you.
Any questions for Carrie or anything? Thank you guys, appreciate that.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, and with that, we are adjourned at 9:59.